Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP here coming from Melbourne, Australia, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce one of my finest guests, David Stark.
That's me.
Yeah, I think you spelled it with a D there, but doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. David Stark, I knew who it was. Anyway, let me tell you something. David, your life has been fascinated by the Beatles and the British music scene coming in from London there. And I just want to tell you, what a fantastic life it must have been, this rock and roll lifestyle. And you finally are going to get to the point of releasing your book. I'm just going to show the makeshift cover if I can.
Yeah.
That's it there. All too much. David Stark, tell us a little bit about it.
Well, yeah, it's been a long time in the making. I've been, a Beatles fan since I was 10 years old, since I first heard Please, Please Me. I was in the 60s, a kid in the 60s at school, but I was lucky enough to get to places where they were. I met them all, lots of occasions. I gate crashed film premieres, and it was just, as a kid, I was very, very lucky. Living in London obviously helped, but I've stayed a fan all my life. I've been in the music business all my life. I've met them, since the 60s, and especially Paul right up to this day, who I know reasonably well. And it's just been great. And everybody, all my friends, everybody said, when are you going to do the book, David? And I kept on saying, well, one day. So I actually started it 2 years ago and got the stories together. And I was doing okay until last year. I had a couple of health problems. I had to have cataracts done. I couldn't see the screen. I had problems in my hands. I couldn't write properly. So it's only thanks to lockdown, actually, that I took it up again this March and I managed to finish it. I've only just finished it and been editing, and it's still not quite there, but it's almost done. And I've put in as many stories as I can remember. I'm just finding all the photos, getting them in order, and really making a great book for everybody to read and enjoy.
David, when is it going to be released? What's the release date so far?
Well, we're 3 months today from Christmas, so I'm hoping it's going to be out in time for Christmas. That's the plan. Yeah, I've got a publisher, a good publisher here in the UK, and they're very keen, and we're just working to get it out, hopefully by early December.
Okay, let's have a look at these photos. Just briefly tell me about these photos. Now, this one is a magic one. Watch this. Look at that.
Yeah, that's me at the top left, walking behind Neil Aspinall right in front of me, and John, when he was busted, had his court case in October 1968, and I was 15 years old there, and I read about it in the paper the day before that John he'd been busted that day with Yoko. They were going to court. It was a Saturday morning, so I had no school, so I just thought, I'm going to go up there, of course, and there were loads of people. You've probably seen the old pictures of all the police surrounding them, and it was absolutely mad, but I was lucky to be in that position, and I didn't see that picture for many years until it was published in a book by another friend of mine, Ray Connolly, published a bio of John after he died, and there it was in the book. I thought, wow, after all these years, the picture's surfaced.
You should frame that one. That one you should frame.
I've actually got it framed.
Okay. Here's the second one.
Yeah. That is John's Aunt Mimi, the lovely lady who brought him up. He was his surrogate mother, of course, after his real mother died, but she also, took him in well before Julia died, when he was 5 years old. And I had a friend, American friend, who went to visit her, and this is in the summer of 1981, so just months after John was killed. And she said, come down and maybe you can help to cheer Mimi up. And so I went down on my own, and she was great. She, was obviously still in deep shock and really very upset. But, I spent a weekend there, not actually staying in her house, but staying locally and spending most of the weekend with her. And she really did perk up, and she was happy to talk about John, tell me all the stories. And not only that, but going through her drawers where she still had his school tie and clothes and caps. She still had all his stuff and drawings, which Yoko later asked to be sent to the Dakota. But I'm sitting there on a Saturday evening, and Mimi showing me all this stuff, and she was a lovely lady, a real nice person. Yeah.
Here's another one to take over there. There's George, and there you are on the left. And who else is there?
Well, on the right is Tom Scott, the sax player who worked with George a lot. And the girl, now I've forgotten her name, but she just happened to be there as well. And she did get in touch with me after I put the picture up on the internet and she spotted it. So I've forgotten her name. But yeah, that was outside Capital Radio in 1974 when George was doing an interview. And I just thought, well, if he's in the studio, which is near to where I worked, he's going to come out. And that's what happened. So we had a very nice chat, and he was on good form. So,
here's another photo there. It's going to take the screen. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, well, the definition not as good as it should be, but that is in 2006 where I'm with Paul at LIPA, the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts, which he co-founded at the turn of the century, and I've been involved with it for quite a few years. And my business is working with songwriters, composers, and I give out the songwriting prizes at LIPA every year at graduation day. So he kindly made me a companion of LIPA back in 2006, so which was great. And you know, it's like getting an honorary degree, obviously. And I had to make a speech in front of him. Here we are last year. This is in Liverpool at LIPA last year, and the guy in the middle is a good pal of mine named Steve Lewis, who used to run Virgin Music Publishing over here. Really great guy, and Paul's always on good form. He always turns up for the event. It's just a shame it had to be cancelled this year. And I'm very, you know, it's real sad for all the students, all the class of 2020. I don't know what's going to happen, because then, you know, it's not the same without having a graduation day and Paul being there. So,
now, listen, I want to move on to the real juicy stuff. Now, you're a man that got around to everything, but the first thing that really I want to zone in on, you were there when Jimi Hendrix played in front of the Beatles and he did Sgt. Pepper. But before you tell that story, I've got to tell you, there's a very good book writer, which I know you saw a bit of the actual interview.
Yeah.
I just want to tell a little bit about him, if I may, David.
Yes.
His name's Aidan Pruitt, and that's his book now that's come out, Jimmy, and we'll make sure you get a signed copy. But he's a Melbourne person and a really good author.
Well, I watched the interview last night, and I can't wait to read it. And Aidan was really great, and you were great, and I'm a big Hendrix fan. So, and I was there. I was 14 years old. Actually, this is at the Savile Theatre on Shaftesbury Avenue, which Brian Epstein leased every Sunday night, and they had amazing concerts. I didn't go to all of them, but they had Jimmy, and I saw him supporting The Who. That was the first time, the first big rock show I'd ever been to with friends. I'd seen the Beatles, but my parents took us to Hammersmith to see them. But this is my first show just with school pals. And like January '67, I saw a tiny advert for it in the evening paper. I booked 6 tickets for us, like 6 kids. We were 13 and 14, and Jimmy had just broken with Hey Joe. He was the man. Everybody was going crazy about him. And I look back and I think, how did we do that? I got the tickets. We went there. He was incredible. And the Who were the main band.
How much were the tickets?
The tickets were about 2 shillings, something like that, back in that day.
Talk about value. Now, listen, I just want to get this. This is something that's in my head. Apparently, he learnt Sgt. Pepper within a couple of days of the album coming out, and tell me what actually happened, what you saw. Okay,
well, that's very true. Just to tell you, at that first concert in January, that's the one that all the Beatles were there, but we were downstairs. They were upstairs and I didn't actually see them that time, but they were all there. But on the second concert that I went to was in June, and that was like 4 days after Sergeant Pepper was released. Paul and George were there, and Jimmy opened the show with his version of the title track. And wow, what a surprise that was. Just hearing Jimmy's version of it was incredible. And like, everyone thought, what the hell's going on here? And literally the album had just come out and he'd learnt it, and with the band, it was it's historic and it's a legendary performance, and it was just great to be there. Yeah. So
that's something lifetime. That's something to talk about all your life, because you got to understand. I do interviews, but when I meet people, they're actually there. It's one thing writing about things and not being there, but it's another thing being there. I'll give you an example. Dan Richter, he's got a book.
Yes.
Right? He was there when Imagine was being recorded. Now, Absolutely. Is that not a life-changing event?
Well, he was incredibly lucky to be there. And I wasn't there, but by coincidence, there's a guy I was at school with, older than me. His name's Andy Stevens. He was the tape engineer in those days. He worked on the album, and later he became the manager of George Michael. So he's a very old friend, but he was at all the Imagine sessions back in the day. Isn't that amazing? So,
yeah, but to meet someone that was actually there, and I've seen photos of the Beatles on the balcony watching, but if you'd actually be in the audience and tell me what you told me, you can't understand for somebody that was born in the 60s to actually have someone that was in the moment. Like, for example, there's Ivor Davies. Guess what? He was there when the Beatles met Elvis. The only person I know that was in the room. I mean, that's mind-blowing.
Okay, I've not heard of him, but sounds amazing.
Let me explain something about Ivor Davies, if I may. He was the British correspondent living in the US, and they said, Ivor, you're going to be with the Beatles for 5 weeks. You're the correspondent writing for the British newspaper. You're going to also ghostwrite for George. So it was 5 weeks living in and out of their suitcases. Then he gets a call from Mal Evans saying, come on down, Ivor. We're doing something. Come on down. He goes down. He rides in the limos with all the guys in another limo apart from the Beatles. They rock up to Elvis's house there in the Hollywood Hills. He goes in there. They couldn't understand why he was there. He's like a baggage guy. He's like a fly on the wall. The Beatles walk in, and they were sort of like a bit cautious because no one said to him, here's Elvis, here's an introduction. It was very cold. So they didn't get off to a good start when they first met. It was like egos, you know what I mean? He had the Elvis Mafia on his side, and the Beatles were themselves.
Yeah, they must have looked like little kids at that time, especially to the Mafia guys.
but I got to tell you, in my mind, these stories that you hear growing up, to actually listen to people that actually speak what was there, it's like mind-blowing for me.
I know. Well, they had an exhibition over here called The Beatles and Elvis a while back, which I went to. And I've actually met Priscilla, and I've met Lisa Marie as well. So... and my only regret is that my first trip to the States was in 1976. And, if I'd made the effort, I could have gone to see Elvis somewhere, I'm sure, but I never did. Yeah.
Now, I want to bet you gate crashing the Yellow Submarine for every year.
Well, that's my most well-known story, where I was 15 years old, and it was the Yellow Submarine premiered on Wednesday, July the 17th, 1968, and I went with a pal just to be in the crowd, but we went early in the afternoon just to get a feel of it. But when we were there, and there's already loads and loads of people, as you can imagine, and the cinema was absolutely looking amazing with all the Yellow Submarine pictures and stuff, and I suddenly saw a door. Somebody go in the door next to the main entrance. So I said to my pal, let's go and see where that leads. So we go along, the door opens, and we find ourselves looking at a lift, which takes us up to the roof, basically. So we spent 3 hours on the roof of the cinema, waiting for the evening, the performance to start. But there's a few other kids up there who are mainly French. So we're just chatting away, and they were having a few drinks and smokes, as you do. It was a bit of a party up there. It was unbelievable that nobody came up to check what was going on. But when it started it was getting dark by then, and the cars and limos started arriving. We could see people arriving down below, and it was, getting like a real Beatlemania event. And we were up on the roof watching it all from above. I said to my pal, let's go try and get in the cinema, get a seat or something. And okay, we went in. As soon as we got inside the cinema, we're accosted by an usherette who asked to see our tickets. I said, I'm sorry, but we gave them in downstairs. So she said, oh, no, you shouldn't have done that. We'll have to call the manager. So she calls the manager over, and I tell him, he says, who invited you? I said, well, actually, it was Clive Epstein, the brother of late Brian Epstein, who I'd actually met on holiday like 4 years before in 1964 when I was, a real kid, and they happened to be staying at the same hotel when they're on honeymoon, him and his wife. So I dropped his name, and the manager said, okay, let's go and find him. And I'm thinking, shit, if we find him, I'm in trouble. If we don't find him, I'm going to be kicked out. So he takes us down to the grand dress circle where all the stars are gathering, and we're walking around going to the bar to find him, and I'm thinking, I hope we do, I hope we don't. But I didn't see him, but I saw a familiar face with a bald head and glasses, who I knew was Dick James, the Beatles music publisher, who I'd never met, but I knew who he was. So I just went up to him. I said, oh, hi, Dick. We're looking for Clive. Have you seen him here? And he said, oh, dear, I'm so sorry. He just telephoned me this afternoon. He can't make it. He's stuck in Liverpool on business tonight. So the manager says, oh, okay, I can see you know people here. You're fine. So he just left us. And like, thanks to Dick James, we're in. And a few years later, he became my first boss in the business. That's another story. Dick James, I work for his company.
I just want to say one thing about Dick James. Here in Australia, as you know, I've got to say it, we had the TV show Robin Hood. And guess who sang the theme song to Robin Hood?
Absolutely. And a great song it was. He was a great singer at the time. So anyway, we were in the film, but no seats. So we're standing at the back of the dress circle, and the whole place is packed. And suddenly the paparazzi, the cameras go berserk, as the Beatles start coming in. Firstly, John and Paul and Yoko, they go down and sit in the front row of the circle, and the cameras are going mad. And then Ringo follows them, Ringo and Maureen down the front. And then finally, George and Patty, who walk straight past me. And you can actually see footage of this in the documentary film of George living in the material world. There's 5 seconds of him walking past me, and I've got a ridiculous face expression on my face, but and there's a couple of photos. I think I sent you one. But then they go and sit down, and then as it's all calming down and the paparazzi are kind of walking back up, I suddenly see 2 seats right behind Paul and his guest, who he wasn't with. He'd just split up from Jane Asher, but he had another redhead with him who I didn't recognize. But I said to my pal, let's go and see if these seats are free. So we walked down there, and who's sitting in the 3rd seat along but Keith Richards of the Stones. So I said, oh, excuse me, but is anyone sitting here? Like 2 empty seats, and you think there would be. And he says, yeah, man, well, they're for Mick and Marianne, but they're in New York, actually, but you're okay there. So we sat in Mick Jagger and Marianne Faithfull seats, and I'm sitting directly behind Paul, and turns out his red-haired guest was none other than Jenny Boyd, who Patty's sister, whose book you have. There you go. She was sitting right in front of me, and it was amazing. And then I'm, sitting watching the film, and I'm watching the Beatles watching the film, and it was amazing. It was one of the most incredible nights of my life. And then I've got his Paul's head right in front of me, but then John's to my right, so I can see him all the way through. I can see his profile, and I'm watching him as much as I can, but watching the film as well. And then when the end came, they all got mobbed. They couldn't move, The audience is going crazy, cheering, and I'm just standing there and I'm chatting to them, and it was great. Really, none of us could move for quite some time, and then I'm just chatting. I can't remember a damn thing, but I do remember John and George. They wanted my opinion of the film, and I said it was great, and they appreciated that. So it was wonderful to be there. It was just a unique experience. And so
look at these fantastic experiences you have by going through a door, and when you end up, it's like luck. Like the chances of that happening is like winning the pools.
Yeah, it's called luck and also chutzpah, because if I hadn't made the effort and had the cheeky idea to ask Dick James or, get on the roof in the first place, none of this would happen. So it's chutzpah. You've got to have a bit of nerve to do these things. And that happened a few times with me as well. So everyone knows I like a good party and I like to enjoy myself. And they used to call it ligging or blagging, bunking in. That's what another pal calls it. And that was just, it was just great, and just to be part of it, just to be sitting there feeling I was in the right place at the right time with with the top stars in the whole world at that time. And it was the last big Beatlemania event in London, because they didn't do anything as big as that again. And then 2 years later, I actually got invited by Apple to the Let It Be premiere, which I went to. Same cinema. No Beatles there, just not the same without them. They'd split up the month before, and of course the film was a bit of a downer as well. So, but yeah, I was lucky to be there, and I still have my invitation that Apple sent me, and so all these stories, it was just great. And another film I gate crashed was called The Magic Christian, if you remember that one.
Yeah, I do, with
Ringo and Peter Sellers. And there again, I went on my own, no ticket, and thought, well, I'm going to get in somehow. So what do? Big crowds outside, so I just hired a taxi from 1 minute round the corner to drop me off on the red carpet. So I get out, there's all the other stars all dressed up going in. I had not a suit, jacket and trousers. I go to the box office, and there's a lady there, and I said, "Oh, I think my aunt's left my ticket for me here." "Oh, what name is that?" she says. Oh, I just came up this name top of my head. I said, "Oh yes, it's Benjamin Quincy Jones." Can you imagine? I'm making up a stupid name, Benjamin Quincy Jones, and I had no idea who Quincy was at the time, but I obviously heard of him. So she's looking down the list. "I'm very sorry, I can't see you on the list. You'll have to speak to the organizer." I said, "Okay, fine." She said, "She's coming in right now." I turn around and this nice looking lady is walking in. Only problem is she's walking in with Princess Margaret, the guest of honor. And like the cameras are going mad again, and they kind of walking right up to me past the box office. So the lady there says, oh, don't worry about it. Here's a ticket and a program. Just gave it to me. So that was it. I'm in. But also,
David, you're the man at the right time. And also want to say now, here's it's not going to be the official cover. They're going to change it. Is that right?
Yeah, we're working on it. But that was my original draft cover, but it'll be that picture, which I absolutely love. It's by a Canadian artist called Ingrid Black, and I found this picture online a few months ago, and it's a painting, and she sold it, but I think it's an amazing psychedelic picture, and it's absolutely the right era. It just conveys exactly how I feel about them and my book, so I'm very pleased with the picture.
I want everybody to go and buy it. It's all too much. It's going to be coming out soon.
Yeah,
and it's going to be available everywhere, isn't it, David?
Yeah, but by December, I hope. And the publisher is actually called This Day in Music. They're a great publisher in the UK. They do these great books about other people who are at events in different places. And if you look out for it, they're thisdayinmusic.com. But that will be announced quite soon. We've got to get it on pre-order very soon now. Yeah.
David, all I want to say is from Plastic EP and David Stark, not David Tark.
Oh, I can't believe I wrote my name wrong.
I just want to say, listen, it's been a buzz. Just stay there and everyone go out and buy the book. And also, before I go, here's your friend. Let's say something about your friend. Hang on. You know this one, don't you? Look at that. Do you love that? Hang on.
Oh, Leslie, my good pal lives up the road. Yeah, we get on very well. We've become good friends in the last few years, and I love him. So,
have you read his book?
Yeah, of course. I think it's brilliant. It's very well written. It's a great book. I really,
I also want to tell you, I don't know if he's told you, right?
Yeah.
But since 1966, this rumor of Paul McCartney being dead, I've solved that in 2020 with Leslie because he cuts Paul's hair and he knows all about it. And I asked Paul the main questions. I said, is there a fake person in the chair? Has his hair become fake? Is there anything different about his head, his ears, his nose, or his eyes, or his face? He said, no, hasn't changed. Well, I said, there's the rumor there. Plastic EP has solved it with you in 2020. If I can't get the truth from the hairdresser, who can I get it from?
Quite right. Yeah. Well, he's always looked the same to me. But no, Les is a great guy.
David, just stay there for a minute. Thanks, David.
Pleasure.